Purdue and Kidd's law office is located in the Galleria area. We're at Post Oak Boulevard in the West Loop. It's one of the busiest areas in the city of Houston. Really, it's one of the busiest areas in the whole country. And it's the best place for us to talk about car insurance, because in the state of Texas, everybody is supposed to have car insurance. We all know that. If you go down to get your car inspected, if you go to renew your registration, you want to get a driver's license, just about anything, they're going to ask you for proof of insurance. And that's great. Everybody should have insurance. But the reality is, there's about 25% of people driving around out there who don't have any insurance at all. And that's what I want to talk to you about, is how to protect yourself. So, the different types of car insurance. There's liability insurance, and that's the one the state of Texas says you have to have. Liability insurance covers you if you cause a wreck. The minimum in the state of Texas is $30,000, which means that if you are involved in a car wreck and it was your fault, your insurance company will pay for the damage to the other car and to the people who are harmed up to the limits of your policy. If it's a minimum limits policy, that's going to be $30,000 on the personal injuries caused and $25,000 on the property damage. And what if there are multiple people injured in the wreck? Well, the $30,000 limit is doubled to $60,000. So it's $30,000 per person involved, or $60,000 per wreck, per occurrence. So there's a doubling, if you will, of the policy. Now, the reality is that most wrecks that are of any significance, they cause damages more than the $30,000. If you get hurt, if you have to go to the doctor, let's say you hurt your back, let's say you have to go to see an emergency room visit, you end up going to the doctor and you may need injections in your back. Your medical expenses are going to go up above $30,000 pretty darn quickly. So, if the person who caused the wreck that you were in only has a minimum limits liability policy, the most you would ever be able to recover in a claim against that person is $30,000. Now, technically, you could sue them and you could get a big judgment against them. But when you go to collect it, the only thing that's going to be there is the $30,000 in insurance, and then whatever other assets that person may have. Realistically speaking, if someone is only able to afford a minimum limits policy, more likely than not, they don't have any assets that could satisfy your judgment. So what do you do in that situation? What if you're in a wreck and someone who caused the wreck caused you to suffer injuries, and the value of that claim is above what the insurance limit is of the person who caused it? Well, that's where you have to look to uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. So remember, the state of Texas requires that you have at least minimum liability limits of $30,000. Well, the law also says that each insurance policy is to include what's called uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. And what that coverage does, that kicks in when somebody else causes a wreck and they are either uninsured or the insurance that they have is not enough to cover the damages caused. Well, there's one little catch on that issue in the statute. It says that the UIM coverage can be waived if the person getting the insurance signs a waiver. And unfortunately, there's a lot of insurance agents that, just as a matter of course, when you go in to get insurance, they will give you a quote on liability insurance and then slide the waiver of the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And then you walk out of there thinking you've got full coverage when in fact you don't have full coverage. So make sure that you look at your insurance policy. You will have a form, which is your proof of insurance, but the thing is that doesn't tell you what your limits are. you need to go look at the declarations page on your insurance policy, and it will tell you how much your coverage is. There will be a part there we'll talk about liability. There'll be a part that talks about property damage, and then there will be a part that talks about uninsured/underinsured. That's the one that you're concerned about because that's what protects you and your family. And if you don't have that, and if you can afford it, and it's only pennies a day to get that extra coverage, you should go and talk to your insurance agent and make sure that you get the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. One other aspect is, when you get the UM/UIM coverage, there is also what's called personal injury protection coverage. And that is usually $2,500, $5,000, or $10,000. And that coverage is a no-fault coverage whatsoever. If you get hurt in your car and you lose time from work, you have medical expenses, that personal injury protection is something that you get to get automatically because you pay for it. So the idea is, if you're going to drive around in the state of Texas, and you know that there's 25% of the people out there who don't have any insurance coverage, it's in your best interest for you and your family to make sure that you have uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage.